This is talking about tax benefits regarding property taxes. Uh, the background, as you might know, Proposition 13, it limits the amount of property tax that the state can put on people. Basically, if you buy a new property, it will be reassessed by the state and you will pay a certain amount to the state. But if you already own the property for a long time, there's a max limit to how much your property you are taxed every year. And so these are the benefits that we're concerned with. So what this proposition will do is it talks about what's called eligible homeowners. Certain people are allowed to get like a tax benefit. This includes old people over 55. This includes disabled people, and this includes people that are affected by natural disasters. And so we want to encourage them or protect their ability to move. Maybe they want to downsize. I think that was the main intent of the original legislation. You know, if you're old, you don't need, 5 houses. It encourages you to move and maybe put that property on the market for younger people, what have you. Also, recently the wildfires, I think, damaged like 15,000 homes. So these people need, they should be encouraged to maybe get out of fire-prone areas, and you know what I mean, because that saves the state money. This will change it so that you can, if you're in those eligible homeowners population, you can, before it was that you can only use this benefit on a property in the same county. And so, by the way, this benefit is that you would pay pretty much the same property tax as you were on your old property on your new property. So it's a big deal. So now that will change by saying now you can apply this to anywhere in the state, not just the county that you were in. Another change is that it used to be that you can only use it once in your life. Now you can use it 3 times. Inheritance is a big one among the Asian American community. Before, if you could bequeath your properties to your kids, and I think they would inherit also the same amount of property tax. Here it makes it stricter. A vote yes would change the rules so that the same property tax rate would only apply if that son or daughter or kid says that they will be using the inherited property as a primary residence, or if it's a farm property. If it's not either of those, then I think it will be reassessed and you will expect a much bigger tax bill when you inherit rental or vacation properties. Before, you can't use it on properties that were more expensive than your previous house, and now you can. That's it for the background. Next, fiscal impact first. The fiscal impact. So we can expect on property, the tax revenue to increase for the state, which means more money for schools and local governments, whatever they spend the tax money on. You can expect, some people say, so the rules for moving will be more lenient. We can expect more homeowners to take advantage of this rule, putting more houses on the market, meaning if there's more houses on the market, theoretically, maybe home prices will decrease with more supply. Younger people maybe will find cheaper houses and more available houses. And also when the houses are sold, those houses are reassessed and the state will get more tax revenue. If you're inheriting a lot of properties, you can expect to pay more. If your parents give you more properties, you're going to pay more taxes. What else do we have here? It'll cost a little more for counties to implement, the administrative costs, trying to keep track of all this stuff, reassessing properties, etc. Okay, so we go on next. I already went over this.
Yeah, I can talk about the arguments. So the first one was the tax savings and housing relief for seniors, wildfire victims, and people with disabilities. So it'll allow seniors who can't maintain their homes to move out to another house and use that property tax on that new house, on their replacement property. And it'll also allow wildfire victims to carry over their property tax if they were affected by the wildfire. So right now, if their house burned down and they moved a few miles away, they pay much higher property tax. And the next one is so these East Coasters, trust heirs, and celebrities are using their vacation homes and rental properties and paying limited property tax on those, and that has costed the state a lot of money, which could have gone to schools or wildfire relief.
I talk about this. There wasn't much really. Um, I'm pretty sure I read it right. It restricts taxable properties. So it was for inherited properties, it would be restricted to places they actually live in and use. If they don't, like, they're not permanent residents at that one property, they can't get use the property tax. They would have to pay a different tax. Yeah, they'll pay a different tax to it. Pretty sure. That was about it. Next, please. And it would cost. There was a cost increase. It said they would need to what's it called? Increase. There would be a cost increase for technological improvement for counties per year, and this number was, if it was arbitrarily written down in the ballot information book. So that's just a lot of money for property tax, I think. And that's about all I had.
All right, yeah, that's it for our presentation. Do we have any questions about the specifics of what it will do? Nobody? All right, everyone knows what's going on. So, okay, does anyone feel?
Whoa.
Yes,
I have
yes.
a question. I just need to digest the material. So how does this close unfair tax loopholes? I didn't get that.
Henry, did you want to answer that?
I'll have to do more research. I didn't really look too deep into that.
So the loopholes right now are maybe I have like 10 houses in the state, right? If I die, my kids will get the 10 houses and they will pay the same tax rate that I've been paying. Maybe I bought those houses 20 years ago, at like literally 50% of the market value right now. So the tax rate is very low because of Prop 13. If I die, I believe that right now all my kids will pay the same tax rate that I've been paying. And the argument here is that, that's not necessarily fair. The state is losing out on a lot of taxes. And it's it's considered a loophole as well, because maybe I don't even live in California. Maybe I live in New York or whatever. I just vacation here. I don't live here. I don't utilize the property. It's not being used well, and the state wants to encourage use or whatever. That is an argument for the measure. If
Okay, got it.
So if this measure passes, so once your kids get the house, they will get a new tax rate?
Yes, after, or Anna, do you want to respond to it?
Yeah. So are you asking for what the rule is now or what it will be? Should this
Kind of both. This one's a little confusing to me.
Okay. Yeah. So when you get the inherited property, you would basically have the same property tax base that your parents did. So then, like, let's say when they bought the house, it was only, the value was $100,000, right? But then when you inherited, it's $500,000. You would only be taxed on the $100,000 that your parents' value was. So you wouldn't be upgraded to this new tax base and taxed more. Does that make sense?
So that's right now.
That's right now, and that's what it will be if you continue to live in that house, if that's your primary residence. But let's say that you move to Irvine, you have a house down there, you don't plan on living in your SF house that your parents gave you, then if Prop 19 were to pass, you would have to have your upgraded property tax base.
You will see an increased tax bill.
Yes.
In the house that I don't live in.
Correct.
I see. Okay.
Here's a caveat though. Even if you say this is going to be, even if you say this is going to be your primary residence, you'll also see an increased tax bill if this passes. It's not going to be flat. It just won't be as much as if you sold it to a third party. So keep that in mind. So if some of you guys are expecting to inherit some property, right, you might think some type of way about this. Or you think it's for the good of the state of California that you should be paying more taxes. If you think Prop 13 is artificially keeping tax revenue low, right, then you'd be like, yeah, I guess I should pay more or whatever. Okay, let's hear some opinions.
Wait, I have another question.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So I know this affects natural disasters, and I don't really know. Well, I don't own property. I don't really know how property taxes work. What happens if your house burns down? Do you still pay taxes on that?
Yeah, you do.
For
Not a
that
lot,
house?
right? Hopefully not everything.
Yeah, so you can get your property, you have to request, right, to get your property reassessed, and then your property tax bill will go down.
Because you just have that plot of land.
Huh?
If your house
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
So your house burns down. You don't have a house. You still have the property because you still own that land and the right of way.
Yeah,
So
correct. Because you still
don't-
own land. The land is worth money.
So you're not paying taxes. But you're still paying taxes. It's just it's a lot lower because you don't have a house. Therefore, your value is like way down, right?
Yeah.
So you would apply for a reassessment of the property. The state would say, hey, before it was worth this much because you had a house on it, and now it's worth less, so you're going to be paying less. You still owe taxes, unless there's some law that says maybe it'll give you a break. There might be a law like that.
Yeah.
So let's hear some opinions. Strong for, strong yes. Anyone feels some type of way?
I mean, I think it's a fair rule, but I don't like it.
Why not?
It's fair for other people, right, who don't have homes and stuff like that, but it's not fair because it's my house.
But don't you only need one house to play like devil's advocate?
Yeah, but it's my house.
What do you do? Do you go like one house for the day, and the next day you have a different house?
My parents, worked their asses off, bought this house, and they want to give it to me in the future, but there's going to be this huge tax increase on it. Like, what the hell? Like, that's my business.
Is it huge?
I mean, it would be, right? Let's say your parents bought the house in like the 80s, and not going to say it's going to happen, but your parents pass away now. It's going to be marked up to market value, which if it's in the Sunset, probably like $1 million, or in the Richmond, like 1.7 million.
And then you don't even know how the market is going to be.
I thought it doesn't go up. I thought it continues.
Huh?
It doesn't continue if it's only if it's multiple properties, right? I thought if it's permanent residence property, you get the same property tax.
Yeah, if you still live there.
Isn't that fine then?
Oh, I don't know. I just don't like it. No one likes paying more taxes.
I don't like it either. I'm just asking. I don't want this bill to pass either because it's the same thing. My parents also worked hard too, and I understand that. But I'm just asking for the sake of argument.
That's why I feel like it's fair because it's only to the primary residence, right? It makes sense. If I'm still living there, my parents gave it to me. You still live there, so I should get, or I live there because my primary residence, so I should get whatever my parents bought. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like, it's mine.
So $1 million question is, how are you voting, Anna?
I don't know. Still thinking.
Yeah.
I need to listen to more opinions. So come on, guys, let me hear.
Yeah.
Change my perception.
William, go ahead. You want to say something?
I don't know. I'm also tempted to say I'm going to vote no because all that money, man, all that money. I think the house that I'm in now, I think they bought it in the 60s. I don't know, man. I think they bought it for $60,000.
Yeah, let me
So
Zillow
imagine-
your address, bro.
Imagine
2 mil or
the
something. Damn.
imagine the jump in property tax. I don't know. That's crazy. But I don't know. If I'm being honest, I think I'll probably vote yes, just because I think it's more fair. I think it's kind of like isn't the current property tax rate is pretty low, right? It's like
It's
what,
way low. It's too low. In my opinion, it's too low.
Like 1% right now. It says on the
yeah,
ballot.
it's
And
way
it goes
too
up like
low.
2% max for inflation.
It's way too low. That's all I'm gonna say.
Wait, so like with like in theory, this puts people who inherit houses on the same playing field as people who would like buy their own first house.
Wait, does it?
A
People
little
who
less.
inherit- Yeah.
Kind of, right? In terms of taxes, like let's say I buy a house, I'm paying property tax from current year, and let's say my friend inherits her house because tragically her parents got in a freak accident, so we both got a house, but different property taxes, right?
Yes, exactly. If your friend is going to be the primary resident of the house he or she inherited, they will actually, if this passes, they will actually see a slight increase in their tax rate. If this doesn't pass, they will maybe not see a bigger tax bill at all.
What is it? Right now, it's like 1%, right?
Yo,
1%.
Not
I'm sorry, I
necessarily.
know Bowden has his hand up, but if it's 1%, your tax rate for your house went from $600 to $100,000.
Yeah.
Because if it's 1%, let's just say it's 1%, $60,000, 1% a year, that's $600 a year. If your house is worth $1 million, right now in Richmond or the Sunset, that's $100,000, homie.
Yeah, there's like a house across the street from me that is being sold for like 2 million. So it's like,
It's not $100,000. 1% of $1 million is, I think, 1,000. It's 1,000. 10,000 might be 10,000, but it's not 100,000.
yeah, it's 10,000.
All right, my math is super off. I was doing 10%. I was like, wait a minute, decimal places, just shift it over. And I was like, oh, wait, no, never mind. But 10,000 to 600, that's still fucking nuts. Sorry, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely. Keep in mind though, California does have the lowest, one of the lowest property tax rates of all 50 states. So I don't know if that matters at all, because we are our own economy. Our markets are obviously very different from the rest of the country. Keep that in mind.
I mean, if
Wait,
it matters,
sorry, can I have a question? So if you inherited it, but you don't live there, your tax will increase. But if you inherited it and you live there, it will basically stay the same.
No, if this passes, it will increase slightly.
It will still increase if I live
Yep.
there.
Yes, it will still increase, but not as much as if we sold
Okay.
it to another party. Yeah.
Okay.
So we were generally having a discussion on, just the self-interest portion versus, the good of society, you might say. There are other ways we can tackle this topic, maybe, because there are other parts of it. But I don't know if, those other ones are going to be totally controversial. One is maybe we should answer Natalie's question first. Well, I'll keep going until she types it out. Okay, why would we allow people to use this 3 times in their life and not just once, right? Does anyone have a problem with that? Like for me, I'm like, wow, that's kind of generous. And it allows people to use it on properties that are more expensive than their previous home. Whereas before, I guess the idea was to let seniors downsize so they would go to a less valuable property. If this, because when I read this, I was like, that's kind of generous. Now it's not too generous that I'll vote against it, but it's something to think about if people have food for thought. Or maybe this is not a big deal compared to the other parts of the measure.
I mean, I think it's good that they have 3 times because they're moving out of fire-prone areas, and apparently most of California is fire-prone. So 3 changes make sense to me, at least. Because, maybe they have bad luck. They just catch fire every time.
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of getting out of these crazy areas that catch fire like every year, because it costs the state, money to evacuate people and save people, and it costs people's lives. 26 people died fighting the fires this year. So it's no joke. It's like the same idea as like the federal government insuring houses in flood-prone areas or hurricane areas, because no private insurance will insure those, because they're like guaranteed in the next 15 years to get destroyed, right? And yet, for whatever reason, there are reasons, but the federal government does insure those homes, allows them to rebuild every 5 years, which that makes sense, and climate change is getting worse. This shit's gonna get worse, and it's just gonna cost money. Does anyone have something to say about that idea? I don't know.
I just have a personal opinion. I think I'm just a little jaded. We might have the lowest property tax in California, but we also do have one of the highest income taxes in the United States. We're number 6 biggest economy in the entire world, I think either before or after Great Britain or United Kingdom. So we have all this money, all this tax money, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere where it's like visible, So I feel like if we are going to increase housing taxes, at least make it so that the person that gets taxed gets to choose where the tax money goes, at least. So at least it's like actually doing something, because we get taxed a lot living in this state, but it doesn't seem like it's ever doing anything.
Anybody want to respond to that?
I don't know. I feel like, well, if they had built that, if they had gone through with that whole hyperspeed rail line from SF to LA, that would be a really splashy example of like, oh, your tax dollars at work. But I mean, maintenance of highways and just stuff you don't think about in general is stuff that your taxes pay for. Public education, all the UCs are paid for by the state, and increasingly small proportion. But it's, I'm not sure if it's the government's job to put money towards really splashy investments. I think I think they should do all the things so we don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Things that I don't want to have to pay for streetlights every time I use them. I don't want to have to pay for the police to come to my house. The stuff you don't think about gets funded by tax dollars, right? And the stuff that you do think about, like what type of candy bar, that's the private market. So, yeah.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, because I found this out recently, because I've lived in California my whole life. I never had to like pay to go on highways, but like in other parts of the, like in the East Coast specifically, like you have to like pay to travel just to be on the freeway to go to different cities and whatnot. You have to pay for that, sort of like what is it, fast track?
That's why they're called freeways. Over here, everywhere is just highways. They got freeways.
Got it.
And we use it so interchangeably because we're
right, exactly. Like fast track was something that probably like East Coast I think has like for like going anywhere. So yeah, just to add on to that.
Yeah, for me, sorry, someone, Natalie, go ahead.
I just kind of want to add on to what William was saying. Like, just from having friends moving, like California does have a lot of social nets due to all our taxes. We just don't notice it because we're super used to it. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. Maybe I can find some examples there. But just talking about taxes, for example, I'm just gonna use the gas tax. Like I am in the transportation industry, and that gas tax has added like so many projects that the industry is like, well, it was booming until COVID hit, but that's a different story. But yeah, like people kept saying, why add this gas tax if it's not gonna fix our roads? But it literally is.
Yes, and I would respond with general comments on the idea of knowing where your tax dollars go. I don't know if any single individual can point to exactly, where all the tax dollars go. Other people have talked about where they do go, where you might not appreciate it or recognize it. But I think Andy was talking about, obviously, you don't feel confident about every single dollar. I think we all have an inkling that the high-speed rail system was probably horribly mismanaged because it's been, a long time and, nothing's really happened. But in general, I would say if we are trying to find some greater sense of confidence in where our tax dollars are going, it requires a lot more effort on our part to dig into things. And it's a little fun. I mean, doing this is kind of fun researching, but we're probably only scratching the surface with this policies that we're talking about. We don't really dive into the specific legislation with how it's written. But the only thing I would say about trying to increase our efforts to have an idea of where the government spends its money is to friggin' vote for people or policies that will give us greater time to do this, right? Maybe a shortened work week, or maybe who knows, basic income or something crazy like that. That's the only way you're ever going to have some confidence, is doing the research, finding all this data and stuff. So that's my 2 cents. What are other angles we can talk about the specific proposition before we move on to the next one?
I mean, the prop in the ballot book says that there's on page 41, there's a possible reduction in state costs for schools in some years. I didn't read too much into it, but I just read that thing. And what do you guys think about having more reduced costs for schools, for in-state costs?
Yeah, I think that would happen if people really get out of a shitty county, because with the rules it says you can go to any county, and more expensive properties. So people you might say take advantage of it or abuse it. So you move into this sweet ass house in San Francisco or whatever. So that might be an argument against this. And the county they move out of may lose property taxes if their house is either destroyed or just no one buys it because it's in a crappy area.
No, for schools.
Yeah, so the schools are funded by counties, and the county gets their revenue from the property taxes. So if you live in this county and you're paying property taxes, but you move and no one buys your old house, the county is no longer collecting taxes because no one. Well, I guess you would still have to pay for it, or maybe your house is destroyed and therefore they get less tax revenue, and so the schools would suffer. Is that enough for anyone to vote no on this? Does that swing anybody, or is that kind of a side thing? All right, closing thoughts on this, anybody? Good to go. All right, we're going on to Prop C.